What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Touchdowns to Home Runs. My name is Bernie, and today we're going to be doing a preview and prediction of this week's matchup between the number 23 Michigan Wolverines and the number 13 Indiana Hoosiers. If you guys like what you see today, make sure to leave a like on the video, comment your thoughts down in the comment section below, and subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs for more videos just like this, and enjoy the video. Before we get too far into it, let's take a look at the AP poll changes this week. After Michigan's very disappointing to Michigan State last week, Michigan falls 10 spots in the polls and are now ranked number 23. After another really good win against the Rutgers, Indiana moves up 4 spots and are now coming into this game ranked number 13. Coming into this game, the history of this series is very lopsided. Michigan has taken 39 of the last 40 matchups between these two teams, with their last loss being in 1987, and Michigan has only lost one game against Indiana since 1967. Michigan currently leads the all-time series with a record of 59-9. The Wolverines come into this game with a record of 1-1 after a very disappointing 27-24 loss against the Michigan State Spartans this weekend. It's about just over 1 week ago since Michigan had their blowout victory over a ranked Minnesota Golden Gophers team, and coming into the Michigan State game, the expectations were very high. A lot of people were asking themselves if this could potentially be the best Michigan team under Jim Harbaugh. We now know that that's probably not the case, and I think overall the coaching staff, when we look at Brown, Harbaugh, definitely needs to be shaken up. And overall, if Michigan wants to be competitive down the line for the rest of the season, they're definitely going to be needing to make some improvements. Let's take a look at this Michigan versus Michigan State game summary, and we're going to start with Joe Milton. Joe Milton wasn't awful. He passed 32 for 51. He threw no touchdowns, no interceptions, 300 yards. Overall, again, he wasn't awful. He just wasn't seeing the field the same way that we sort of wanted to become used to in the Minnesota game. I think the timing between him and receivers, especially on the deep ball, still needs some drastic improvements. The run game for Michigan was probably the brightest point of their game against Michigan State. All 3 of Michigan's touchdowns came on the ground, 1 from Hassan Haskins and 2 from Blake Corum. Joe Milton was Michigan's leading rusher in terms of carries and rushing yards, and Michigan as a team managed to get 152 rushing yards on the ground. One area of Michigan's game that I have tended to like and that I think is trending sort of in the right direction is their receiving game. And just like week 1, they were able to get a lot of different guys involved. In fact, against Michigan State, 11 different players had a catch. And Roman Wilson led the way with 71 receiving yards. But Michigan is proving that they can beat you with a lot of different weapons that they do have on the offense. If you watch my post-game show of the Michigan versus Michigan State game, you'll know how passionately I feel about the defense, and I know a lot of other fans are very upset as well. Michigan really continued to struggle in this game in terms of defending without penalties, defending in man coverage, one-on-one, and defending downfield and on the outside. Really, every single type of coverage, they struggled in week 2 especially. We saw it sort of starting in week 1, but definitely in week 2, they struggled in a lot of ways. I think there's 3 different things that this can be attributed to. First, I think honestly Don Brown's scheme is just becoming predictable. I think that we're running these same sort of formations, and I think teams are just getting an understanding of how to beat us. The second is that our veteran players are just not stepping up. We saw the veterans sort of show up in half 2 against Minnesota, but they were almost non-existent, I think, in the game against Michigan State. And we have a lot of new faces this year, especially on the defense, so we definitely need those guys to step up. The third is the cornerbacks, and especially on Saturday, they got absolutely destroyed by Michigan State, particularly that Ricky White versus Vincent Gray matchup. We definitely need improved play from our cornerbacks. Let's flip over to Indiana now, and Indiana has had a fantastic start to the season. They come into this game with a record of 2-0 with the win in week 1 against number 8 Penn State, who actually played pretty good against Ohio State too, so that's actually a very solid win. And then on Saturday, a 37-21 win against Rutgers. Let's take a look at why Indiana was so successful, particularly in the game Saturday against Rutgers. And they do a lot of things right. They are a very solid team all around when you look down the depth chart. And I mean, we're going to start with Michael Penix Jr., their quarterback. He passed 17 for 26. He was very solid on Saturday. He threw 3 touchdowns and no interceptions as well. The running game was also very solid for Indiana. Stevie Scott led the way for them with 21 carries and 79 yards. Indiana had 1 touchdown on the ground and a total of 105 yards against Rutgers on Saturday. On Saturday, Walt Phillier led the way in terms of receiving. He had an absolutely fantastic game. 5 receptions, 137 yards, and he had a long catch of 63 yards. The defense for Indiana on Saturday was also exceptional. They allowed 21 points. They had 3 interceptions, 4 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. This is going to be a very interesting test for the line of Michigan and to see what Joe Milton and some of these new faces can do on the offense. When I was looking at the box score for Indiana's game on Saturday, there's sort of 2 main issues that I was able to pull out. The first is that Indiana was 2 for 12 against Rutgers on 3rd down. Now, this is a Michigan defense that is definitely struggling right now, and Indiana can definitely not afford to give that defense some extra opportunities. Sort of going along those same lines, Indiana had 11 penalties for 119 yards. This is a struggling Michigan team really on both sides of the ball. And the one thing that Indiana does not want to do is give Michigan those extra opportunities. So that's definitely something they're going to have to clean up before next weekend. Before we get into the betting lines and predictions for this week's game, we're just going to take a look at some of the head-to-head trends. If you're new to the channel, we basically look at some of the previous matchups between Michigan and Indiana in this case, and we just break those down. As I said at the beginning part of the video, Michigan comes into this game having won 39 of the past 40 matchups between these two teams, including coming into this game on a 24-game win streak against Indiana. In the last 10 games against Michigan, Indiana has a slight edge in terms of against the spread with a record of 5-4-1, and the over-under in the game totals has been split 5-5 in the past 10 matchups. Although Indiana tends to have more passing attempts, when it comes to yards, Michigan pretty heavily outruns and outpasses Indiana. On to the betting lines and my predictions now, but before we do, just keep in mind I'm filming this video very early on in this week, and the lines are definitely going to fluctuate between now and Saturday, so just keep that in mind. So the odds I currently have Michigan coming into the game as 3.5-point favorites, which I find sort of surprising, and the over-under game total is sitting at 55.5. So here's my thinking. Michigan's offense is definitely better, in my opinion, than what we saw last week. I think they actually played pretty well to only score 24 points. But on the flip side, Indiana has also proven, especially with their game last week against Rutgers, they have that proven game against Penn State. This Indiana offense is also very legit. Michigan's defense, though, was brutal last week, and I think this is a very particularly good matchup for Walt Phillier. But that being said, Michigan is a team who plays very good against teams without state in their name, and Michigan has also been very good at bouncing back in recent years. If I was going to bet this game, I'd probably stay away from the spread, but if I did have to pick one or the other, I would probably take Michigan at -3.5. And because of Michigan's lack of defense from last week, sort of the high expectations from both offense, I'll take the over 55.5. If you made it to this point in the video, thank you. Let me know your thoughts and predictions on this game down in the comment section below. If you liked what you saw today, make sure to leave a thumbs up and subscribe to Touchdowns to Home Runs. We do previews just like these for college football and sometimes the NFL during weekdays. And then on the weekdays, we do post-game shows for college football and the NFL. So if this is something you liked or you think you might be interested in this type of content, make sure to stick around. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.